Joining us now, she's one of the most decorated players in the history of Michigan softball. She is now on the staff and entering her second season as an assistant. She was a two-time All-American in Michigan, what the second Michigan player ever to drive in over 200 runs, Big Ten Player of the Year. And oh, by the way, an Olympian. I'm probably leaving her. Oh, yeah, she was an MPF MVP. I mean, we can go on and on, but she has a life, so we need to introduce her before we go through the rest of the resume. And that's Amanda Chidester joining us here on In the Circle. I'm saying your resume, it's a lengthy one.
So been a lot of great years of softball, that's for sure. It's been a great run. Loved every second of it.
Well, let's talk about your current new role, which is you're entering your second season as an assistant coach. And I want to bring up, first of all, what got you interested in getting into full time coaching?
I mean, I love teaching. It's something that, while I was continuing to play, I was doing lessons and camps. I loved sharing all the things I've learned over the years in softball. So I knew that coaching was always going to be there and something I definitely wanted to get into. I just didn't expect it to be this soon, and I did never dreamt of it happening. My first job being at the University of Michigan with it. So I mean, yeah, it was one of those opportunities that was presented. And if I said no to it in that moment, I was saying no to it forever, and I couldn't live with that. So I mean, that kind of sums it up. But it's something I've always wanted to do, and here I am.
So take me through that process of how it came about, because that I will
Yeah.
never forget. Obviously, the week of your final, it turned out to be the final weekend of your playing career at Athletes Unlimited. On that Wednesday, Coach Hutch announces her retirement, which caught everybody off guard. Uh, and then a few days later, and that was the week where you were being celebrated because that was your last weekend at Athletes Unlimited. So just take me through this whole process. Bonnie Toe gets promoted a little bit shortly after that. And then I'm sure at some point you were contacted. So just take me through that because that was a wild, wild kind of off season there overall.
Wild. Wild, yeah. I mean, and a lot of people will say, "Oh, you knew it was all going to happen." I literally had no idea, zero idea. Like I was just as in shock as everyone else was when Hutch retired that Wednesday. And then when Bonnie got announced, I mean, I didn't even think anything of it that I would be the next assistant. And a couple people had said to me, "Oh, like you're gonna go back to coach at Michigan," and I was like, "No, like that. There's no way that's gonna happen. Like I haven't been in college coaching. I've just been playing." I was like, "No shot." And I was going into that weekend just ready to celebrate an amazing career and just have fun with all my friends for the last time out on the field. And it was Thursday night. I got a call from Bonnie, and I was just getting back from helping out with DeMarini and Wilson with the travel ball team doing this photo shoot thing, and everyone else at AU is at Top Golf, all playing. So it was like a moment of just kind of just me. I get this phone call, and Bonnie says she's like, "I want to recruit you for a second time," and I was like, "What?" like, she's like, "I want you to come back and coach at Michigan." And at this time, like I'm, living in Utah with my fiance, and I mean, we have our whole life there, and we just bought a place, and it was just like, there's just no way I'm going to be able to do this. And she was like, "I just want you to think on it, like, we want you back here at Michigan," and blah blah blah. And I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not one to like lose sleep over things." And I didn't sleep at all that night because it was just like all the things are running through my head. And then I'm playing the next day, right? It's Thursday night. Like I'm playing the next day. I didn't sleep at all that night. And then all of a sudden on Saturday, Hutch comes out and surprises me out at the
Yep.
field. And it was just like, what is going on? And it was, I mean, again, it was just a surreal moment with just celebrating all of softball and then this amazing opportunity. And again, like I said before, like I ended up changing plans to go to campus just to check it out, get a feel, see what was what. And it's just like, I can't say no to this. Like, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. I mean, think about the coaching staff. They've all been coaching together for what, 27 years? Like, Jen Brundage has been here for 27 years or some along those lines. Like, the jobs just don't come open here. And I was like, I want this, is my dream to coach here one day. I was like, I have to take it. So
Yeah, all of that took place last summer, 2022. It's kind of a wild win. Now, you had already decided you were going to retire,
Yes.
which I want to get into because I was kind of I felt you were still in your peak, but we'll get into that. Hey, but let's say you hadn't decided to retire at that point.
Mhm.
What would you have done? Like, is that what I mean? Obviously, you had already retired, so it was an easy transition. But would you
Yeah.
have still been able to play? Would you have had to retire anyway to go into like? That's kind of one of
Yeah.
those kind of timing things there. That kind of
I
it
feel
worked out for you.
it did. It worked out perfect, and that is exactly how I would have wanted it to go. If I was still playing, I would have asked, like, I want to take this job, but will you let me play at least one more summer? And would it have been very hard? Like, I mean, that was why I didn't get into college coaching before, because it's very hard to train and keep. I'm one who's all in with something. And if I'm going to play, I'm going to be all in playing and be my absolute best at playing. And if I'm going to coach, I'm going to be all in coaching and give my absolute best with coaching. So I just don't love getting spread thin, and that would happen in that situation. So yeah, everything aligned with it, and it was crazy, but now we're settled, and life is good.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's amazing. Because
yeah,
Courtney Gano, I just had on the show recently over the summer, and she just retired from athletes. I mean, it worked out because she's now full time assistant in Washington. It's kind of similar
yeah,
there, but I know there's a lot of athletes we've had on, like Morgan Zirkle is the head coach in Marshall. She's still going
hmm
to play. So there's that.
hmm
I'm always fascinated by that balancing act that you got to do as a player and as a coach.
yeah. You gotta be a special person to be able to keep. It's just too much for me. Like I mean, I give them credit, all the credit in the world, because there's a few people who do it. I mean, Sid Romero has done it, and I mean, there's a handful of people that just keep doing that, and yeah, not for me, but I give them all the credit in the world for doing it. But yeah, and to go back to your question too about retiring, like you said, like you felt like I was in my prime, and I agree. Like I would have kept playing, right? But it comes to a point where it's tough. Like just doing it's a grind to just play in the summer, and all those months prior to just competing in 3 months of play, barely 3 months of play, and training all the other months on top of that is just, it's taxing. It's a lot. And if I was making millions of dollars doing it, I'd keep doing it. But in our sport, it's just like you have to make ends meet in every different way. So it's not the easiest lifestyle to live, but I mean, I would never trade the last 10 years of my professional career for anything.
Well, and I say you were in your peak because it was true. I mean, I watched you. I covered you in the NPF when you had the MVP year in 2019, which I think helped you in a lot of ways get that opportunity with the U.S. national team, which you would make that Olympic team. You played in the Olympics there in Olympia, and then we're doing great in Athletes Unlimited. I think you
Mm-hmm.
finished second in one of those years, right? You were in the top there
Yeah.
four. So was it just a wear and tear? Was it what was it? Because like I said, you were still. I thought you were playing at your best and a peak. You could have gone on for a while if you wanted. That MPF year you had that you won the MVP, I thought was probably the second best year that any players had from a hitter standpoint, behind the only Kelly Kretschmann, which
Kelly Crutchman, yeah.
yeah, nobody could top a triple crown that Kelly Kretschmann did
No,
that year that she
no.
had. But nonetheless, yet was it the wear and tear?
Yeah, I mean, it's just again, like I said, it's a lot. It's a lot to make ends meet in all different ways. And I'm 100% all in. And I was starting a new job with Hit Tracks and with Riser, and me and some of the other girls were working on that, and I was diving into that, and the training just didn't seem as appealing to me as much anymore. And to me, that was just a sign, like, okay, like give your body a rest, like you've had an amazing career, like it's okay to be done. And I felt like I wanted to be able to make the decision, and I don't regret it. I mean, do I? I was just watching the USA team out in Chile, and they just won the gold. Like those moments I look at and I'm like, gosh, I wish I could still do that, but I know that it's going to come to an end at some point anyway. And I'm just grateful that I've had all the years after college to continue to play. So, but yeah, I just feel like that for me, it was just like the training piece. I'm 100% all in, and I didn't feel like I wanted to put all that work into that training to compete in the summer. And so that was the sign for me, like, just it's time. Like if you can't give it your all and 100% all in, then it's time.
Would you have gone after a coaching job let's assume that Michigan was not an option. Right after that, you played. Were you going to look after a coaching job? Were you going to take a year off? What was going to be your plan?
Yeah, I was gonna give it a few years. I wanted to, I was looking into a ski pass and living it up and doing some things that, I know the demands of this college schedule. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's worth it. It's a lot of work. And I have been in that grind for, how many years of my life now. And so it was like I kind of wanted to take a break from that and just free up some time and spend it how I wanted. But, you know, life had different plans. So
I would say so. Probably worked out well for you from that standpoint. What did you learn from your first year as a full time assistant? Obviously, it was all brand new for a lot of right. Coach Toll in her first year as the head coach versus being the associate. What did you learn from your first year that you're going to apply here into your second year?
hmm good question. I think for me, the biggest thing is want it less for them. Like, I feel like I know so much and I want to give them so much information. Like, I have the answers to all of your tests, to all of the things. And like, I've been there, I've experienced it, and I just want to give you, give you, give you, give you. But at some point, like, they need to learn on their own. And so just learning how to guide them to the answers that they need instead of just coming out right out the bat and telling them. So letting them fail a little bit and then working through that and giving them the answers. So I've taken my coaching and giving down probably like 10 notches and just letting things play out, letting them breathe a little bit more and take a little bit more ownership of their swing. I don't want them depending on me, which I did last year, but I think that I would give a little bit too much. So I think taking that approach of backing off and letting them take that ownership has been big, and I've definitely seen an improvement with them this year so far.
Kind of simplifying it to some extent there,
Yeah.
right? Because everybody's different. That's one of the adjustments I've had when I've interviewed many great players that have gone into coaching. Said the big adjustment is to remember that every player has their own learning curve, has their own
Mhm.
style. That
Yep.
just because you consumed a lot of things doesn't mean they can. So you have to adapt to them
Mhm.
more so than you,
Totally.
right? Is that kind of what you learned
Well,
describing?
yeah, and yeah, totally. And then, I've have to realize that, what were the steps? Like, I wasn't when I graduated, when I was in college, I wasn't at where I'm at right now, right? Like, I've learned so much over these 10 years. And so, how did I get to that point, right? There was so much learning to get up to that point. So I need to let them have that learning process instead of giving them the information I got, at my best and giving it to them now. Like, there's a development process, like they need to go through that. So I just have to kind of like bring it back down, and like they're going to get there, but I need to let it have some time to get there.
Tell me about the coaching staff. Tell me about your role within the coaching staff and how the staff works together. It's a bigger staff now, obviously, with everything's go with the extra assistants and everything like that. But just describe the staff and your role in it.
Yeah, I think it's a very cohesive group. Like, we're constantly bouncing ideas off each other, we're constantly engaged. Like, everyone is just all in for the girls, and I think that is common. Everyone is competitive, everyone loves this university, loves this sport. Like, we all share that together. So like, there's no questioning anything. Like, the intentions are for the best for our players. So I think that is special. And I feel like, I've known Jen and Bonnie since I've been 12 years old. So it's like, it's my family. Like, and that's what it feels like coming to work every day is like, you're with your family, and you trust them and all the things. So I think that's pretty special. I think that my role in all of this is to continue to bring energy and, bring my passion for the game out to that field every single day for the girls. And then hitting, I do all the stuff with the hitting, and just constantly bouncing ideas off people and like, hey, what we're doing with this. Faith and I work hand in hand on the hitting, and it's been great.
I was gonna say, obviously, you mentioned Fate. For those that don't know, Fate Canfield, who's now full time assistant as well. So, do you? How does that work? Do you both share on the offense, run with the defense? Kind of give. Is it one of those things where
Yeah.
you kind of you tap in into a few different things?
Yeah, I think, Jen does all the pitching, Bonnie does all the defense, and then Faith and I will help with the defense. Like, I'll take the catchers, Faith takes, whatever else needs to be done, middle infield or outfield. And sometimes I'll do some work with the first baseman as well. But it's all shared in that sense. And then offense, like Faith and I will plan everything, bounce ideas back and forth. And then we have our player development coach, Jeremy Kelch, and we, all three of us, will sit down. It's like, okay, where are we at? Where do we want to go? What do we need to get done today? How can we, what can we share here? So it's just constantly going back and forth with creating the best offense. So it's definitely a group effort in that sense.
Describe now coaching under Coach Bonnie Toll and as well as obviously Jennifer Brundage versus playing for them. How's that? What's that transition been like?
That's the special thing about Michigan, right? Like what you see is what you get. I mean, it's the same thing with Hutch, right? Like, and that's how it is with them. Like nothing's changed. I mean, they still are great with me as a human, and we just now share more softball stuff and more behind the scenes stuff. But as and the thing is too is like I've come back all these years to come visit, and I've kept in touch, and so I mean, I trained here all the time for the Olympics. So they would always come out, check on me, see how I'm doing, or I'd come up here and we'd always catch up. So it really doesn't feel any different. And I think that says so much.
What's the most common question your players ask you?
Most common question my players ask me. Well, I have no idea.
I mean, you're an Olympian. I would think there would be some questions. Like, I would have plenty of questions if I were in their shoes, but yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, they'll ask me like where my favorite place was that I've played, or they'll ask me about some of my different experiences, or what it was like to play with some of the different teammates, or who's that like, what is she like? What is she like? And so different things like that, but nothing too crazy. They treat me like, I'm just chitty out there. So it's fun.
Well, that's because you've been around, right? Did that help? Did that help in the transition too? Is that they were familiar with you, so they're that probably helped in the process there as you learned them and they learned you.
Yeah, I think so. I think they opened me with open arms to whatever I was coming with. They were receiving, they were trying, they were doing. Like I had no backlash in that area. I think where I needed to get to know them. Like they knew me, I needed to get to know them. And so that was something that I've really been putting at the forefront, is just getting to know those players as people and not just as like out on the ball field. Because sometimes with me, like I'm just like out on the ball field and like, let's go, let's get after it. Instead of like, okay, how was your day? Like, how's school? What's going on? Like, tell me more. Like, just getting to know them. And I think, I did a little bit last year, but I've really taken that to the next level this year, and it's been helpful.
Last year, when you reflect on last year, it was a young group learning on the fly. Maybe it caught up with you at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the year. I know it wasn't the way you all wanted to end the year, but I'm sure it's brought motivation to this fall and up to this upcoming year. But when you reflect as a staff last year, what comes to mind as you get into this year?
Yeah, we had a lot of growing to do, and they just needed experience. Like that group, none of them had experience playing at that level, and we needed it. And so it was huge for them, because now everything that we're doing, it makes sense. Like sometimes you just need to experience it for things to click a little bit more. And I think that experience that they had last year really helped them take what they do at practice to a whole nother level, because now they know what needs to happen to compete and to win at that level.
Let's talk about the offense. Obviously, you graduated four starters from the team last year overall last year, but including Lexi Blair and Audrey LeClaire. I mean, like, that's gonna be weird to see a Michigan lineup without Lexi Blair. For me, anyway,
Yeah.
as often as I've seen you all play. But talk about the offense this year. Who has stood out? Who are some of the players you think will lead in your offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone. I think that we're gonna have a much better experienced offense this year, and we have a great group of freshmen that came in. And again, like I said, just those girls getting that experience last year has really helped them already this year with knowing what to do in practice and kind of putting themselves in those situations. So I'm just excited for what nine end up cracking the lineup and are the most consistent, because I think that it's going to be a battle. It's going to be ever changing, and I'm excited about that. So overall, I'm excited for every single one of them.
You just named your three captains in Durkowski, the pitch, LeBeau, and Toll. Toll's a great story. Had a breakout year offensively last year. So let's talk about her a little bit. because
Mhm.
everybody knows who her aunt is. So there's that pressure that already comes in. Forget the fact that you're related to the head coach. The head coach was a standout player in her own right in the same school. So there's multi pressure there. But she delivered last year. What clicked for her last year, and what did she bring to the program that obviously is to the point where she's one of the three captains?
Yeah, I think that Kiki works so hard out there. I mean, she's consistent. She shows up, she gets after it, and she wants to get better. And you can feel that from her every single day. And she took her hitting serious. I mean, she showed up extra to all the extra hitting that she could get. She did. And I think the biggest thing for her was just mental. How do I stay consistent, right? Like sometimes when you start getting success, then you start trying to have the success or you're expecting to have it. And so, how do I mentally stay consistent and keep that one pitch focus? And so, that was something that, we worked on quite a bit last year with her, like because she was just kind of like, see it, then go down, see it, then go down. And then finally, at the end of the year, it was just like an awareness piece of like, wow, like I can feel it now when I'm starting to put all that on me. And so now, like, this is the routine I'm going to stick to, and that helps her stay consistent. So, I just think that for her, it was just kind of finding what helps her stay in that good place and stay consistent. And she just keeps getting better with it now. And so I'm really excited for her this year. And just keeping it. It doesn't have to be pressure. It doesn't have to be expectations. It's one pitch at a time, and do what you do best. And that is kind of what we've been preaching with her. And so I just hope that she can continue that. And I'll keep reminding her.
That's good. Yeah, definitely a reminder there. Of the other returners, who have you noticed has stood out this fall that you think can make that similar jump or close to it?
Yeah, I think another one is Ellie Sealer. I mean, she, last year she did significantly better than a freshman year, and she just keeps, moving up, moving up, moving up. And I mean, she got after it this summer along with some of her other teammates, and I'm just, she did great in the fall. She those hard gap shots that I envisioned for her last year. I'm finally seeing this year, and so she just. I feel like sometimes as an athlete, when you take all aspects of the game take ownership of all aspects with your nutrition, your workouts, all your extra stuff, like your mental game, when you can get all that stuff squared away and know that you're putting in the work in all those areas, things start lining up for you. And I think that they're starting to line up for her, and I'm excited to see what comes of it from the season.
Of the new faces, how many do you think could contribute right away and bring to the table, either offensively and also defensively?
Yeah, I think all of them have the opportunity to. Absolutely. I mean, everyone has an opportunity to, and that group is a great group. So it's it's all theirs if they want it. They just need to go get it.
What do you want your offensive identity to be? When people watch Michigan's offense, what do you
Mhm.
want people to see, and how close do you feel you're to that goal? Whether do you the personnel, the pieces, because obviously you're recruiting. You got a young. I know you're excited about this young class. I remember talking to Coach Toll about it last year, even. But how close are you to that identity that you want Michigan's offense to be like?
Yeah. I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. I just, I want them to be relentless. I want them, if they get knocked down, they're going to get right back up. If they are over 2, like that last at bat, that doesn't matter to them. And staying present and staying one pitch focus and, bring on the challenge, like scrappy. Like I want them to be relentless and scrappy out on that field. And, I think we are working towards that and mentally tough. Like I think that is a huge thing in our sport at this level is the mental side of things. So we are definitely moving in the right direction. I don't think we're where I want them to be, and I don't think that they're where they want to be either. So it's a mutual feeling there, and but that's the fun of all of it, right? That's why we come to work every single day is to work towards being the best that we can be.
You get to face your pitching staff at practice. You get to face Durkowski and LeBeau, two of the captains. Talk about the pitching staff led by those two.
Yeah, they're tough, right? Like it's always a battle out at practice, and there's days where they just completely shut down the offense, and I'm just like, ah, and then I think like, okay, like they're good, and then there's times where the offense give them a run for their money, and I'm just like, let's go, and so that makes me happy when the offense definitely gives them a run for their money. So it's a fun battle back and forth. We did the Wolverines Unlimited, and it was great. Like the girls competed with each other, competed against each other. It was a fun environment, and that's the energy I want them to have always. Just like full on competition. Like we're not backing down.
I had a feeling that Athletes Unlimited point system would come into play. It has to. Do you want to share who won that? Is that top secret? Like, how does that? And what was it like to kind of be the director of all that?
Yeah, no, it was good. And Faith actually helped with Athletes Unlimited last year. She was a facilitator, so she was great with that as well. And it was great. I mean, the kids loved it, and Jess LeBeau was the winner, so she took on the crown, the champion. And then I believe it was Maddie Erickson got second, and Indy Langford got third. I believe that's what it was, but. And then we did it where it was a Blues versus Maize, and I was the coach for the blue team. Shout out to the blue team. We won 2 out of the 3 games. So
That's pretty good. You mentioned Langford, Indiana Langford. I talk about her potential.
oh
She had a really great year last year. Talk
yeah.
about her.
Yeah, and it's crazy because coming in last year, she just needed to get stronger. She needed experience. She needed to get a feel for, what this next level was. And she stayed patient. She stayed at it. Like, again, talk about someone who's always in there working, working, working. Like, she is it. And she just kept like picking away, picking away, picking away, and then fought her way into the lineup. And she could do some good things. And I can't wait for some of the tools that she has been working on this off season to utilize this year. Again, it's getting them to experience things like, wow, like, okay, like I could do this because a lot of defenses play me like this, right? So then you just kind of start thinking the game a little bit more and understanding things a little bit more and having that little bit more confidence that you're able to do certain things. So I'm excited for her, this year being her second year and just, all the work that she's put in. So
Last time we had you on the show, we talked about your playing career. We mentioned the fact that I called a couple of your games because Michigan played at UCF, which I call games there, and you would play obviously a lot in Florida. And there was that one year in 2011 where you played UCF twice and you beat us pretty good and you crushed us. So I knew you were good. I reflected on that roster recently. There were a lot of players there that are now coaches, like
mm-hmm.
yourself, Dorian Shaw, Mandy Gardner, who I've had on the show there. I think there was 1 or 2 more others there. I'm curious, when you all were playing, did you ever talk? I mean, did you all talk a lot of softball? Did you now foreshadow like, hey, we're so into this that some of us are going to be coaches? Like, I mean, is that just a coincidence? What do you make of that?
I think there's a lot of Michigan softball alum out there that are coaching.
Yeah.
So obviously I think that is a testament to the coaching staff here at Michigan and what they instill into us as players. I feel like, there's some kind of motivation to want to do that for others. And just, proud to be a part of the Block M, playing for something bigger than yourself. Like all those things, and you want to take that to other places and teach people those same things that you learned while you were playing for that staff. I think that, I mean, there's got to be something in that way that they just rub off on us, right? Like I'd love to figure out the number of Michigan alum that are either coaching college or coaching travel ball, because there are a lot.
Ooh, that's a good assignment. I'm gonna have to work on that.
Yeah,
I might have to
I'm
get.
telling you.
Either
Think about
that.
like
Ooh,
Gleason, there's Marissa Young, like
yeah,
you just said, Dorian, there was Mandy. There is, I mean, the list can go on and on and on.
Leah Howard has to have the answer. Long-time
I
SID
know
in the.
we should put Leah
She's on
on
top
that
of that.
one.
We got to break her down. Of course, she's got like 1,000 sports she's running. So but um, your playing career, you played a lot of different positions that you've talked about. How did that experience of playing all these different positions, I'm curious, help you from a coaching standpoint? That has to help you a little bit. The fact that you were such a versatile player that you were able to play so many different positions, whatever you were asked to do, you did. That
Mm-hmm.
has to pay off now as a coach because you're kind of doing the same way these players now.
Yeah, definitely. And I just think it's just instilling the mentality of it, right? Like I know I struggled with that It's like I was running around at practice like a chicken with its head cut off. Like, should he go here? Should he go there? Should he do this? And I just remember being like, why me? Like, why can't I just be in one position? But in the end, I mean, that's what got me on the Olympic team, right? Like my ability to be a utility player is what helped me in the end. And I learned to embrace it and have the mentality of like, I'm special in that sense because I can be utilized in other places, you know, and I, you know, just it's the mentality of it. So getting them to kind of slow the game down when things get a little fast, I think is the biggest thing I preach in those moments when they're getting thrown to different, you know, positions. It's just like you're in this position now, you're not in the other position. So be present, be in the moment here and give your best. Like you're not going to be perfect and that's okay.
Coach Hutch, obviously, it's still kind of people are still getting used to her not being in the dugout. How often though is she around at games? And did she ever give you any advice when you joined the staff at all? I was just kind of curious because you mentioned the story. She surprised you in your final weekend
Mm-hmm.
of your career. You didn't see that. You didn't know she was coming,
No,
correct?
I had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea.
What did that mean to you that she took
I
the
mean,
time to go see
everything,
you?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, everything. I mean, they've always been so supportive of me throughout all of my career and then, you know, just like my number one fans through it all. And I'll never forget like Hutch would always tell me and even in college, like you're gonna be a coach one day. Like you're gonna be a coach one day. And you know, and the same thing when I you know, I got the job at Duke and I did it for a year. And, you know, after when I was done, she's like, just so you know, you're going to get back into it. Like, you're going to coach. And I was like, yeah, but not yet. Like, I'm not ready yet. So, you know, for her to come down and talk with me, she's like, you were born for this. Like, this is for you. Like, your passion for the game and what you've done and your journey and, you know, your story can impact so many lives. So it's like, this is you, like this is, you know. And so it's like, I mean, when she tells you that, what are you going to say? Like, come on.
That's
But
correct. Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, she's always just been like, you know, be you. And, you know, she comes around to the games and she'll sneak into the office and she's definitely still present. So it's always great to have her around.
Yeah, I got to see her last game, as it turns out. It was in the Orlando Regional in 22,
Mhm.
and she was emotional after the game, which got me thinking maybe this could be a retirement. But we didn't hear anything
Yeah,
until the Wednesday before the final weekend. I think of Athletes Unlimited, which caught everybody off guard. You mentioned you were caught off guard too.
completely, completely.
Uh, wow! But now you're part of the coaching tree. You're part of the Hutch
I,
coaching tree.
it's insane. Yeah, crazy.
Want to ask you? You are an Olympian. Uh, Describe that experience in Tokyo. It's a unique Olympics that hopefully we don't have another one in that from the standpoint of all the limitations that there were. You were basically, sequestered, from a bubble standpoint with the pandemic and everything. Describe that Olympic experience for you as someone who, made the team.
Yeah, I mean, right, like we couldn't have fans like that. That was a big bummer, but in the grand scheme of things, like when we were at the village, it was, you know, all the teams, all the different teams and countries were at the village. It was just like unbelievable to experience all of that and to get that feel. Um, and just to see all these athletes competing at the highest level is just unbelievable. But honestly, like to be out there to see the Tokyo and the Olympic rings all over the place, to hear the national anthem for the first time and to like be out on that field, it just, you could feel it. Like you could feel the difference. And so much work went into being in that moment, so much change, so much highs, so many highs, so many lows, like so much life happened. And there you were, just like everything that you had set your goals for, it was like there in that moment, you know. So it's just one of those surreal feelings that, you know, not many people get to experience their lifelong goal and actually achieve it, and be living in it and be fully aware that you're living it. So yeah, a moment of a lifetime, that's for sure.
Do you remember the day you found out you made the team? Because it was a great story. Like I said, you had that great run there in the NPF that really got a push. You got the tryout. Just take me through that the day you found out, however you found out you made the team, because that had to be one of the best days of your life. That you're, oh my goodness, you're going to be in the Olympics. You're going to be an Olympian.
Yeah, no, and you know, going into that tryout, there was a lot on the line. I got cut from the year before, and you know, I know that you know the success that I had in the MPF played a huge role in it, and I just, went into that tryout. Like I have to just give my best out there, showcase what I have and give everything I have, and it's out of my hands at some point. But yeah, they sent out a email. I was on the email and it was just like one of those like, oh, like I did it, like now the fun begins. Like that, people talk about pressure and stress in games, and it's like that brought on the most pressure and stress is those tryouts because it's out of your hands and you can showcase what you have, but they're tough. Like I'm, getting judged my at bats off of facing Monica Abbott. Like really the odds of me getting a hit off her are like zero. So it's like put up a good at bat, I guess, so it's they're tough. But then, once I was announced on the team, like we all met in a hotel room and we were all together, just like hugging each other, just like we did it, like we finally like this is it. And that core group, we've been together, for a lot of years. So it was one of those just like huge weight lifted off me. Now let's just go have fun and enjoy every second of this.
Yeah. Plus, you mentioned the pressure, but you're going up against talented players all over the board.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's great players that aren't going to make it. I don't think people forget that. But what was it like? Do you mention that core group? I mean, you got players like Valerie Arrioto, who recently just got inducted to the U.S. Hall of Fame. Obviously, you mentioned Monica Abbott, which turns out was her last Olympics, and the USA softball. Kat Osterman, her last performance there, among others. I mean, the cast speaks for itself. What was it like to be part of that group?
Yeah, I mean, we're just again, it's a team, right? And you're wanting to be the best. So you're competing every day to bring out the best. And a team is a team. You got to work on culture, you got to work on communicating, you got to work on working together. You got to work on, pushing each other. And we were faced with all those challenges and it was everyone said it then like you guys will have this special bond and when you're in it it's like it's hard to like grasp all of that, but then when you're out of it it's like dang, like we spent a lot of time together and we went through a lot of tough moments together that you really wouldn't spend and do with many other people. So yeah, I mean I think that just being a part of the experience just it's one like no other, and you're grateful for all those moments, and it impacts your life and everything that you do.
The Olympics are now back in Los Angeles, 2028. That is now official. What was your reaction when you heard the news? And what do you want to see softball in the Olympics? Do you think there's any tweaks that have to happen? Do you like, from either format or just the process overall? But what's your thoughts now? The softball back in the Olympics in 2028 in Los Angeles.
It's amazing, absolutely amazing, and I am so happy for that next group of girls to be able to go through and experience it, and then keeping some maybe of the ones that we that have the younger ones that played in 2020. I hope they stay in it and compete in 28, which I know some of them are. But it's huge for the sport, and we need to continue to do what needs to be done to keep it. I know a lot of it has to do with money, popularity. We need to get it growing a little bit more in Europe. But I think that, it's a sport that needs to stay in it. So there are a lot of conversations. You can't really change the format too much. Like the game's the game. You need that many people to compete with to play the sport. So I think it's one of those things where it's like, come on, it's one of the most popular, like oldest sports, like keep it in there. Like it draws attention. So I think things like Athletes Unlimited continuing to draw all the viewership and the WPF drawing as much viewership and attention as we can, that also helps it as well.
You read my mind there. I was going to ask you how much of the pro game is going to help here in the next handful of years. How important is it as someone who has done it in both levels? The NPF level, as mentioned, you were an MVP there. You Athletes Limited finished second. Is this pro game healthy? What's the next step for the pro level to reach maybe some of the popularity that the college game currently has? Because I think that's an important process in all this in the next handful of years for a lot of players to stick around and play and give that opportunity to try out and be part of that Olympic team in 28.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we just need to come together a little bit more and strategize together. And I know that there have been conversations of that happening, and I hope they continue to happen. So I know that there are, groups of people who work tirelessly to make it happen. And I think that if there's, ways that people like myself can get back in there and get involved and, voice my opinion or do what I need to do, I am more than happy to do it. But right now it's just kind of, there's some people above us that need to, continue to have conversations, which I know that they are. And I have friends who are involved in it way more than I am. And there are conversations. So we just need to keep pushing it and, keeping the sport alive at the youth level and keeping even college players wanting to play at the next level too. I think, it's one of my favorite questions to ask recruits is, do you want to play at the next level? And that fires me up when they do, because I think it's an awesome opportunity and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
So if I put you as the czar of softball at any level, what would you change if there's anything you would change? Anything you think needs to be addressed at any level of softball? Could be club, it could be the pros, could be college, international. If I put you in charge right now, I give you the podium. What would you think needs to be addressed?
Well, I think that the thing that will take, I don't know, I guess it depends on what we're looking at, right? Because like the whole travel ball world into the colleges, like
Yeah.
that's kind of crazy world, right? Like, and I'm just learning more and more about that. I mean, it's a whole different animal. But for women in general to have more opportunity at the next level, I think is where I would want to put some attention, because I think it would be awesome if softball could get to the point where basketball is, where even, volleyball has a lot of opportunity overseas. I mean, they need to be a little bit better here in the US, but like, you know, whatever, tennis, golf, some of those other sports that, thrive professionally in for women, soccer, like I want softball to get to that point. So I would dive into that area and try to figure out how we could get all the people who love softball and want to be involved at that next level. How can we work together to create something great, to help really take that professional league off and make it something sustainable, like an MLB. And it obviously would never get to that level, but if we need to make the season longer, if we need to bring it into the fall, if we need to travel, like I know there are a lot of women out there who would be willing to do it to continue to play.
And I've heard from a lot of players that have played in the Athletes Unlimited that one of the things they appreciate is that they're taken care of at Athletes Unlimited. They're treated first class. That's why a lot of them come back. And I think that's part of it too, right? Part of it. So you mentioned the income, making sure the athletes are taken care of, so they could play as long as they can and made a positive experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, retweet. I agree with all of that wholeheartedly, and it will continue to go because of that. So, yeah, I mean, I really like what Athletes Unlimited does, and I just hope that we can continue to grow with it.
I like that a lot and appreciate your honesty on that. And I think you should be a voice they should reach out to. And we'll bring you back on and we'll talk more about it in future episodes. But you got a life and a season to get ready. So this will be my last question. As you get ready, before you know it, February will get here and your season will get going. What are a couple of keys for this team to accomplish their goals and a couple things that you're looking forward to finding out about this team?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the resilience they need to show. I mean, it's not going to be rainbows and butterflies. So, are we going to be resilient to keep getting better throughout the year? Like, I learned last year that the beginning of the season is like so like you don't even really remember it once you get towards the end. It's a long season and you have to like continue to build. Like you can't take what happens in the beginning and just be like, oh no, that's it. You're terrible and it's not gonna happen. Like, no, like each moment keeps building and we got to be at our peak, when it comes postseason time. So it's just like keep building that. So I think the mentality of resilience is going to be the biggest thing for this group, and can't wait to get after it with them.
Can't wait either to see them play, and I can't wait to see you back in the dugout again this upcoming season. Thank you so much for taking the time from your busy schedule to talk to us. We always enjoy you. We're big fans of yours, as you know. Congrats on all the success you've had to this point, and looking forward to the success you'll have as a coach moving forward. But thanks to always to talk to us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.